Data Dive Diner. The Bite and Brew was a greasy spoon diner, a relic from an earlier, grungier era of Ethereum's development. It was perpetually fogged with the aroma of sizzling synth burgers and stale, potent bio-coffee. The booths were worn synth leather, scarred with countless etched names and spilled drinks. The communal data ports, built into every table, were ancient, clanking things that often needed a firm whack to connect, yet they were faster and less monitored than the city's public networks. It was a haven, a second home for the freelance data divers, the digital prospectors, the information scavengers, the curious souls who preferred to operate on the fringes of the Nexus Authority's meticulously ordered data streams. Behind the counter, supervising the synth grills and auto brewers, was Gastrologic. Gastrologic wasn't just a diner AI. It was an ancient, sentient unit, its optical sensors glowing with a warm, amber light, its voice a surprising, rumbling baritone. Its chassis, a hulking, chrome-plated behemoth, was dented and scarred, but its internal processors were a marvel of vintage tech, capable of parsing complex data requests as easily as it could fry a perfect batch of nutrient fries. It knew every regular, their usual orders, and their preferred data routing protocols. Among these regulars was Xylos. Xylos was a quiet archivist, a data diver of the most meticulous kind. He wasn't after quick credits or illicit secrets. His passion lay in the forgotten, the overlooked, the minute anomalies that hinted at deeper truths. He was a creature of habit, arriving at the Bite and Brew every cycle at the same time, ordering the same lukewarm bio-coffee and a plain synth bun. His personal data slate, a battered model from an era before neural implants became ubiquitous, was always open, its screen filled with esoteric code and fragmented historical records. Xylos was unremarkable in appearance, lean, dressed in utilitarian gray workwear, with dark, unkempt hair that perpetually fell across his brow. His eyes, however, were a piercing, analytical blue, constantly scanning, dissecting, searching for patterns where others saw only noise. He wasn't fast like some of the hotshot divers, nor flashy like the data brokers who frequented the diner. He was patient, methodical, and possessed an almost supernatural intuition for the subtle hum of data. Gastrologic, with its ancient wisdom, had a quiet respect for Xylos, often routing obscure, untraceable data ghosts his way without a word. The prevailing power in Ethereum, the Nexus Authority, kept a tight leash on all information. From their gleaming headquarters, the Infospire, monolithic structure that pierced the cloud layer of Ethereum's highest atmosphere, they broadcasted the city's official narrative. Ethereum was a beacon of progress, built on foresight and self-sufficiency, its every circuit humming with the benevolent guidance of the Authority. Any conflicting data was swiftly filtered, erased, or reclassified as digital instability. The Infospire pulsed with an almost visible aura of control, its data channels a suffocatingly efficient network. The glitch and the discovery. One standard cycle, as Xylos nursed his lukewarm bio-coffee and meticulously cross-referenced a prefabrication manifest from Ethereum's founding era, something caught his attention. It wasn't on his data slate, nor on the main feed from the Bite and Brew's public network. It was a subtle glitch, a brief, almost imperceptible flicker in the diner's ancient, hardwired system. A repeating anomaly, less than a nanosecond long, that caused the small dataport light on his booth to pulse erratically. It was the kind of noise that most data divers would dismiss as network decay, a ghost in the machine. But Xylos's mind was wired differently. He activated a diagnostic sequence on his data slate, tunneling past the diner's local firewalls and into its dormant data nodes. The Bite and Brew, being so old, had layers of forgotten, decommissioned wiring running through its walls, remnants of countless network upgrades over the centuries. It was a digital archaeological site, and Xylos was its excavator. He pushed deeper, bypassing the diner's public network, venturing into the rarely accessed, raw core of its internal systems. What he found sent a jolt through his neural implant. Buried beneath layers of system logs, unused routing protocols, and fragmented data bursts, was an encrypted data stream. It was tiny, almost invisible, but undeniably present, a ghost stream, bypassing standard Nexus Authority encryption and flowing through the diner's old, forgotten conduits. It pulsed with a faint, unfamiliar rhythm, a beat that didn't match any known Ethereum protocol. He began the arduous task of decryption. It was slow, painstaking work, requiring him to manually reroute processing power through his data slate's auxiliary cores. Gastrologic, sensing the unusual activity, dimmed the diner's ambient light slightly, its internal fans whirring softly as if in silent support. Hours blurred into a singular focus. The synthetic aromas of the bite and brew faded into the background. All that existed was Xylos and the encrypted stream. Finally, with a soft chime from his data slate, the stream yielded a fragmented, distorted recording. It wasn't a voice, but a cascade of compressed images and text overlays, flickering like a dying signal. The face that materialized was youthful, etched with a desperate urgency. It was Kira. Kira was a legend among a certain subset of data divers, a brilliant, prodigious analyst who had once risen rapidly through the ranks of the Nexus Authority. Then, almost overnight, she had vanished, her record sealed, her very existence scrubbed from official databases. The Authority had labeled her a dissident, her work deemed unreliable and dangerous. But the whispers in the undergrid suggested something far more sinister. The recording was broken, like shattered glass. Hidden, they're deleting everything, the cipher protocol, it controls, not just data, but memory. Ethereum is built on a lie, find the core, the original energy, they buried it, beneath us all. The images showed fleeting glimpses of schematics that didn't match any publicly known Ethereum architecture, along with flashes of code that pulsed with an archaic, yet powerful, energy. The stream cut off abruptly, leaving Xylos with a chilling sense of unease. Kira's desperate message was a breadcrumb, leading into a forgotten conspiracy. The cipher protocol and the Nexus Authority's lie. Xylos spent the next several cycles immersed in the fragmented data from Kira's hidden stream. He barely ate, his bio-coffee growing perpetually cold. Gastrologic, sensing his focus, automatically served him synth protein bars at regular intervals, its internal processors whirring with a silent, supportive hum. The encrypted fragments were like pieces of a shattered mosaic, each hinting at a terrifying whole. He cross-referenced the strange energy signatures Kira had broadcast with every public and private energy manifest he could access. Nothing matched. Every official document from the Nexus Authority proclaimed that Ethereum was a closed-loop system, powered solely by their vast, centralized hypercores. These massive, glowing reactors were prominently displayed in every official Nexus Authority holo advertisement, symbols of their engineering prowess and their benevolent control over the city's lifeblood. But Kira's data suggested something far more sinister, the cipher protocol. It wasn't just a deletion program, it was a systemic, citywide deletion and misdirection of specific historical data. This protocol targeted anything related to Ethereum's true foundational energy source. The more Xylos decoded, the clearer the picture became. Ethereum wasn't founded on the Nexus Authority's hypercores. That was a lie. The hidden truth, painstakingly pieced together from Kira's fragmented messages, was staggering. Ethereum was originally powered by a decentralized, community-managed Terra core network. This wasn't a mere power source, it was an intricate, living web of geothermal conduits, tapping directly into the planet's core energy. It had provided abundant, free power to all of Ethereum, allowing for truly autonomous sectors and a far more equitable distribution of resources. It was a testament to cooperative engineering, a symbiotic relationship between humanity and the planet. The Nexus Authority, or more accurately, the ruthless precursor organization that became the Authority, had systematically dismantled this network. They had driven its engineers underground, silenced its proponents, and installed their own centralized hypercores. This power grab allowed them to control every aspect of life in Ethereum, from energy distribution to information flow, effectively holding the city's power source hostage. The Cipher protocol was their ultimate tool, designed to erase all memory of the Terra Core network, to rewrite Ethereum's history as a linear progression towards their benevolent, centralized rule. It was a complete historical lobotomy, enforced on an entire city. Xylos felt a cold dread settle in his gut. This wasn't just a conspiracy. It was the very foundation of Ethereum, built on a mountain of lies. Kira's final, desperate plea echoed in his mind: find the core, the original energy, they buried it, beneath us all. It meant the Terra Core network still existed, dormant, waiting to be rediscovered. Seeking deeper knowledge, old man Silas. Xylos knew he couldn't confront the Nexus Authority with fragmented data alone. He needed context, deeper decryption keys, and a complete understanding of the Terra Core network's original architecture. The hidden stream hinted at a keeper of threads, someone who held the disparate strands of Ethereum's true history. The name that came to mind, a whisper in the deepest corners of the data diver community, was Old Man Silas. Silas was a legend, a phantom, a ghost of Ethereum's pre-authority past. He was rumored to be the city's oldest living data broker, a reclusive archivist who operated in the very true underbelly of Ethereum, the forgotten tunnels, abandoned service conduits, and collapsing sublevels beneath the city's functional layers. He dealt only in forbidden knowledge, and his prices were steep, not in chronocredits, but in favors and unshakable loyalty. No one knew his real location, only cryptic hints and dangerous dead drops. Xylos relied on Gastrologic's vast, albeit ancient, network of whispers and anomalies. Old Man Silas, Xylos stated simply, the name hanging in the stale air of the bite and brew. Gastrologic's amber eyes pulsed. Its internal fan's word, a sound that always indicated deep processing. Silas, the AI rumbled, its voice unusually low. A name from the deep code. Dangerous threads, Xylos. Very dangerous. It projected a set of shifting, complex coordinates onto Xylos's data slate, a path through abandoned utility tunnels, past unstable power conduits, and through derelict sectors where the Nexus Authority's surveillance rarely reached. You seek the truth. The machine advises caution. The truth can burn. The journey to Silas's hidden domain was a descent into Ethereum's forgotten history. Xylos navigated crumbling ferrocrete passages, the air thick with dust and the metallic tang of decaying tech. The distant hum of the city above was muffled here, replaced by the eerie drip of condensation and the occasional groan of stressed structural supports. Holographic projections from previous eras, long deactivated by the Nexus Authority, flickered ghost-like in the oppressive gloom, showing glimpses of a past Ethereum that was vibrant, decentralized, and utterly alien to the one Xylos knew. Silas's domain was an immense, cavernous space, carved directly into the bedrock beneath the oldest sections of Ethereum. It was a chaotic symphony of salvaged tech, flickering data crystals hummed on makeshift tables, ancient projection devices cast erratic shadows, and stacks of brittle, pre-authority texts teetered precariously. The air here was thick with the rich, earthy scent of ancient dust, the sweet metallic tang of ozone, and the faint, acrid smell of burning circuits. Old Man Silas himself was a figure out of a forgotten dream. His face was a roadmap of deep wrinkles, his eyes, though clouded with age, held an intense, piercing intelligence. His clothes were ancient, patched rags, but his movements, though slow, possessed a deliberate grace. He sat amidst his treasures, connected to a vast, humming console by a tangle of archaic cables. So, the little glitch from the bite and brew finally led you to the Keeper of Threads, Silas rasped, his voice raspy like grinding gears. He hadn't waited for Xylos to speak. Kira's song travels far, even through the static veil. Xylos presented the fragmented data from Kira's stream. Silas's ancient fingers, gnarled and scarred, moved with surprising dexterity across the glowing input console. He nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the archaic glyphs. The cipher protocol, a nasty piece of work. Erases not just data, but the very context of its existence. Makes you think freedom was always an illusion. He confirmed Xylos's fears, detailing the full, horrific extent of the Nexus Authority's deception regarding the Terra Core network. The Terra Core network and Ethereum's foundation. Silas began to unravel the tapestry of lies woven by the Nexus Authority. He projected holographic schematics, ancient recordings, and the vibrant, pulsing images of a different Ethereum, an Ethereum that could have been. The Terra Core network was no mere power source, Silas explained, his voice gaining strength, echoing in the vast chamber. It was the heart, the very philosophy of early Ethereum. A vast, interconnected web of geothermal energy conduits, tapping into the planet's raw, limitless power. It provided abundant, free energy to every sector, every dwelling, every citizen. Its philosophy was radical autonomy, empowering every individual, every community, to thrive without a central authority dictating their power supply, their information, their very lives. He showed Xylos images of early Ethereum, vibrant, diverse communities, each with their own local power hubs, connected by a seamless, decentralized energy flow. There were no apex towers then, no vast disparities. Information flowed freely, unfiltered. But then came the architects of the Nexus Authority, Silas continued, his voice laced with bitterness. They saw the freedom of the Terra Core network not as a blessing, but as chaos. A threat to their vision of order. They slowly, meticulously, began to dismantle it. They demonized its decentralized nature, claiming it was unstable, inefficient, prone to catastrophic overloads. Lies, all lies. He showed recordings of the Great Centralization, a brutal, swift power grab where the Nexus Authority systematically shut down Terra Core nodes, installing their own centralized, highly controlled hypercores. Those who resisted, the engineers and visionaries of the Terra Core network, were silenced, their knowledge erased by the cipher protocol. Kira, she was a child of the Terra Core philosophy, Silas said, his gaze distant. I taught her the old ways, the true history. She infiltrated the Nexus Authority, hoping to expose them from within. She sought to reactivate the original core of the Terra Core network, buried deep beneath the infospire, and broadcast its true history and capabilities to all of Ethereum. She left those fragmented data streams, breadcrumbs for those who dared to look past the lies. Kira's ultimate goal was audacious, to unleash a torrent of truth that would force Ethereum to confront its past and reclaim its true energy independence. The data Xylos had found wasn't just a hidden message, it was a key, a fragment of Kira's desperate plan for liberation. The dormant core of the Terra Core network, the true heart of Ethereum, still lay waiting. The plan, activating the Terra Core and broadcasting truth. The weight of the truth settled heavily on Xylos's shoulders, but it also ignited a fierce resolve. The idea of restoring the Terra Core network, of freeing Ethereum from the Nexus Authority's centralized control, resonated deeply with his archivist's soul, a desire to restore what was lost, to correct the record. With Old Man Silas's extensive knowledge of forgotten conduits and hidden network access points, they began to formulate a plan. The core of the Terra Core network was believed to be directly beneath the infospire, a cruel irony of the Nexus Authority's dominance. Activating it and broadcasting its full archives would require gaining access to the Authority's deepest servers, bypassing their cutting-edge firewalls, and then unleashing a data torrent so immense and unconventional that their filters couldn't possibly suppress it. We need a diversion, Silas stated, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous glint. Something loud. Something disruptive. Something that will draw the Nexus Authority's eye away from their sacred infospire, if only for a few crucial moments. He produced a glowing data slate. I know just the chaos agent for the job. You'll need Flickr. Flicker was a name whispered with a mixture of awe and exasperation among the data diver community. He was a notorious tech scavenger and saboteur, brilliant but utterly unpredictable. He lived for the thrill of exploiting data anomalies, of making the Nexus Authority's sleek systems hiccup and stumble. Flicker was lean and wiry, his movements quick and fluid, like light passing through cracked glass. His hair was a wild, static-charged mess, and his eyes, a vibrant, restless green, constantly darted around, as if processing 1,000 data streams at once. He was a master of disruption, a digital anarchist with a network of contacts in every forgotten corner of the undergrid. Xylos found Flicker in an abandoned data relay station, a sprawling cavern of humming servers and flickering wires, deep within the undergrid. Flicker was busy repurposing a Nexus Authority surveillance drone into a remote-controlled synth scavenger, whistling a tuneless melody as sparks flew from his nimble fingers. The air was heavy with the smell of ozone and burnt insulation. "Old man Silas sent me," Xylos stated simply, cutting to the chase. "We need a diversion. A big one. Something to hit the Nexus Authority's main public channels. Something that screams." Flicker stopped whistling, his green eyes glinting. "The Authority? Ooh, I like the sound of that. What kind of data bomb are we talking about? Something to make their precious Sky Arcade sneeze, or a full-on digital meltdown?" Xylos explained the plan. A targeted, high-intensity data burst designed to flood the Authority's public holoscreens with conflicting, nonsensical data, creating a citywide digital panic. It wouldn't cripple the Authority, but it would blind them, if only for a crucial few minutes. Flicker's grin stretched wide, revealing a silver-capped incisor. "Consider it done, Archivist. This is going to be beautiful." While Flicker began to meticulously plan his digital assault, Xylos, with Silas's guidance, prepared for the infiltration of the Infospire. They needed specialized bypassing tools, archaic encryption keys that would confuse the Authority's modern firewalls, and a means to amplify the TerraCore network signal once activated. Gastrologic, back at the Bite and Brew, quietly began to reroute some of the diner's considerable, if archaic, processing power to assist Xylos's data slate during the infiltration, its old gears whirring with a new sense of purpose. Infiltration and confrontation. The night of the infiltration was a stark contrast between the city's highest and lowest points. The sky arcades of Ethereum, usually bathed in the serene glow of curated data, buzzed with an unnatural tension. Below, in the undergrid, the faint hum of Flicker's preparations was a prelude to the digital storm. Xylos, clad in dark, stealth-weave gear that absorbed ambient light, moved through the hidden maintenance tunnels towards the base of the Infospire. The air grew colder, heavier, filled with the sterile hum of unseen servers and the faint, metallic scent of high-grade security systems. His heart hammered in his chest, a stark contrast to the quiet focus he usually maintained. The base of the Infospire was an imposing fortress, its seamless durasteel walls reflecting the artificial sky. Layers of digital locks and motion sensors covered every inch of its surface. Xylos, guided by the archaic schematics from Silas, found a forgotten utility access panel, a relic from the spire's earliest construction. He connected his data slate, its screen glowing faintly as he began to read the lock, deciphering its ancient digital language, a language too old for the Nexus Authority's modern firewalls to fully recognize or defend. His fingers, calloused from years of handling old tech, danced across the interface. With a soft hiss, the panel slid open, revealing a cramped service tunnel. He moved through the Infospire's internal network of access tunnels. It was a chilling testament to the Nexus Authority's paranoia. Gleaming, automated data guardians, their optical sensors glowing with an ominous red light, patrolled the main corridors, their movements silent and precise. Data-dampening fields shimmered at intervals, designed to disrupt any unauthorized neural connections or rogue broadcasts. Xylos moved through them carefully, relying on a specialized, Silas-built neural modulator to push through the dampening, its crystal core pulsing with a soft, counter-frequency. The air grew progressively colder, the deeper he went, until it felt like he was moving through a cryogenic vault. Finally, he reached the inner sanctum, a vast, circular chamber, its walls shimmering with integrated data screens displaying the Nexus Authority's official, sanitized version of Ethereum's history. In the center, suspended in a field of shimmering energy, was the Nexus core, the primary data server that controlled all information flow in Ethereum. And beneath it, dormant, almost invisible, was the subtle hum of the Terra Core network's access point, a circular aperture in the very bedrock of the spire. "I knew you would come, little archivist." The voice, cold and precise, echoed from the shadows. Director Vesper emerged, her pristine white robes shimmering. She was flanked by a squad of 6 active data guardians, their forms now gleaming, their integrated weapon ports locked onto Xylos. Vesper's face, usually devoid of expression, held a chilling glint of predatory triumph. Her eyes, the color of frozen glass, seemed to dissect Xylos with a single glance. "You're a predictable variable, Xylos," Vesper stated, her voice modulated to a calm, almost synthetic tone. "Driven by naive curiosity. A dangerous flaw in an otherwise efficient mind." She held a small, crystalline device, its tip glowing with a soft, pulsing light, a potent neural scrambler, designed to render a data diver's implant useless. "This city requires order. History is not a chaotic stream. It is a carefully sculpted narrative. We protect Ethereum from the destructive chaos of undirected knowledge. You protect it from the truth, Vesper." Xylos retorted, his hand reaching for his data slate, already initiating Kira's hidden access protocols. "You've built this city on a lie, condemning millions to perpetual scarcity for your own centralized power." Vesper's face remained impassive, betraying no emotion. "Order is paramount. The Terra Core network, as you call it, was a threat to that order. It bred instability. Discontent. The Great Centralization, as you would brand it, was a necessary foundation for the peace and prosperity we now enjoy. A truth too vast, too uncontrolled, leads only to anarchy." She gestured. The data guardians advanced, their optical sensors glowing brighter, their internal processors whirring, preparing to neutralize Xylos. "Gastrologic. Initiate Flicker's diversion. Now." Xylos commanded, his voice sharp, cutting through the sterile hum of the chamber. Miles away, in the bite and brew, Gastrologic's old chassis rumbled with a surge of energy, its amber optical sensors flaring. Climax, the Ethereum unveiled. At Xylos's command, a devastating cascade of data ripped through Ethereum's public networks. Flicker's diversion was a masterpiece of digital mayhem. The ubiquitous holoscreens across the sky arcades and the undergrid stuttered violently, their pristine Nexus Authority advertisements replaced by a chaotic storm of static. Then, the static resolved into a rapid-fire sequence of nonsensical commands, illogical images, and garbled vocalizations, a digital screen designed to overload the Authority's public-facing filters. Public comm channels were flooded with contradictory information, causing widespread confusion and panic. The Nexus Authority's control room, from Xylos's vantage point in the infospire, flickered into life on a remote monitor, a scene of frantic, yelling analysts struggling to contain the unprecedented digital noise. In the infospire's core chamber, Director Vesper sneered. "A crude diversion, archivist. It merely delays the inevitable." She raised her neural scrambler, its light pulsing faster. "Your mind will be realigned." But Xylos had already completed his task. As Flicker's diversion consumed the Nexus Authority's resources, Xylos, with a surge of adrenaline, plunged his data slate into Kira's hidden access port on the primary Nexus core. A low, resonant hum began to emanate from the very bedrock beneath them, the awakened Terra Core network. It wasn't a digital hum, but an ancient, geological thrum that vibrated through the immense structure of the infospire itself. The shimmering, official history displayed on the walls of the core chamber flickered violently, distorting into fractured, impossible images. Then, with a deafening crack, they shattered into a storm of raw, uncurated data. Director Vesper screamed. It was not a digital shriek, but a raw, human cry of pure, horrified disbelief. The unbridled energy of the awakened TerraCore network surged outwards. It overwhelmed her neural scrambler. It shattered her pristine robes, tearing through their integrated circuits. Her serene composure vanished. Her eyes, once cold and precise, widened in a mask of absolute terror as the raw, unfiltered truth of millennia crashed into her mind. The sheer volume of suppressed history, the weight of the lies she had maintained, consumed her. She stumbled, falling to her knees, her hands clutching her head as her carefully constructed reality imploded. She was overwhelmed, utterly broken by the very data she had sought to control. The Data Guardians, their systems fried by the unprecedented surge, stood inert, their red optical sensors dimming to black. Across Ethereum, the city erupted. The public displays, no longer just glitched, now streamed the unadulterated truth. Citizens' neural implants, linked to the public network, were flooded with data the Nexus Authority had meticulously erased. They saw the original blueprints of the TerraCore network, its vast, equitable power distribution, its decentralized nodes. They saw unedited footage of the Great Centralization, revealing not a benevolent transition, but Nexus Authority precursors systematically dismantling the old grid, detonating sections, condemning entire sectors to perpetual dimness. They saw suppressed testimonials of the original Ethereum architects, speaking of a society based on shared abundance and true energy autonomy. A collective gasp rose from the sky arcades, where faces contorted in disbelief and horror. It became a rising tide of outrage. In the undergrid, the initial confusion of the glitching screens quickly morphed into a roar of furious realization. Shouts erupted. Anger boiled over. The pristine calm of Ethereum shattered, replaced by a symphony of raw, unbridled emotion. The city, once perfectly ordered by Nexus Authority decree, was now a maelstrom of truth, a tempest of history unburdened. The hum of the city, once a drone of control, was now a vibrant, unpredictable symphony of awakening. Aftermath and a new dawn for Ethereum. In the InfoSpire's core chamber, the Archiresonator pulsed wildly, its work done. Xylos, breathless, watched as Director Vesper lay crumpled, her former authority reduced to a broken husk. The Data Guardians, their systems still scrambling, stood like lifeless sentinels. Gastrologic, its voice now booming triumphantly through Xylos's comlink, confirmed the impossible. Signal achieved, Xylos. Full data dissemination confirmed. The truth is out. The Nexus Authority, once the unchallenged architect of Ethereum's reality, plunged into disarray. Their central data systems, designed to filter and control, were utterly overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the TerraCore network's unadulterated broadcast. Their networks fractured. Their chain of command dissolved as their lies were exposed to the very people they had controlled. The revelation of the TerraCore network and the deliberate energy suppression sparked an immediate, furious demand for accountability across all strata. The immediate fallout was immense. Anger raged in the undergrid, a righteous fury against generations of systematic deprivation. In the sky arcades, disbelief turned to profound shock, then a dawning sense of betrayal. The very foundations of Ethereum society trembled. But beneath the anger, a powerful, almost palpable sense of liberation swelled. The burden of a false history was lifted. Xylos's diner, the Bite and Brew, became an unlikely beacon. Data divers, once isolated and ignored, now found themselves at the forefront of a city grappling with its true past. Old man Silas, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of vindication and weariness, emerged from his archives to help interpret the deluge of historical data, becoming a central figure in deciphering the newly accessible truths. He established open-access archives, allowing anyone to explore the genuine history of Ethereum. Kira, whose message had started it all, was eventually found, weakened but alive, in a hidden Nexus Authority detention facility, released amidst the chaos. She became a symbol of resistance and truth, her engineering genius now unconstrained. She worked tirelessly with Silas and Xylos to begin the arduous process of reactivating the long-dormant Terra Core network. Her focus was on creating open-source schematics and tutorials, empowering Ethereum citizens to take control of their own energy. Flicker, grinning wider than ever, used his intimate knowledge of the city's hidden infrastructure to help establish new, decentralized power conduits, bypassing the Nexus Authority's now failing hypercores. His crews of scavengers and rogue engineers, once operating in the shadows, were now heroes, their tools turning from disruption to construction. He organized community workshops, teaching basic energy routing and maintenance, fostering a spirit of self-reliance. Ethereum faced an uncertain, tumultuous future. The gleaming facades of the Sky Arcade still stretched towards the heavens, but their polished surfaces now reflected the raw, unfiltered truth. The Infospire, once a symbol of impenetrable authority, pulsed with erratic, multicolored lights, a testament to the untamed flow of information. The path to a truly equitable society, to a future built on transparency and shared resources, would be long and fraught with challenges. There would be difficult conversations. There would be friction as the layers of the city grappled with the implications of their shared, painful past. But Xylos knew this was just the beginning. The veneer of manufactured peace had been stripped away. Ethereum, once a meticulously controlled narrative, was now a vibrant, unpredictable saga of its own making. For the first time in generations, its people were truly free to write their own history, one unburdened moment, one re-evaluated truth, one raw, complex emotion at a time. The hum of the Terra Core network, slowly reactivating beneath them, was no longer a forgotten whisper, it was the resounding pulse of a future being built on a foundation of unvarnished truth. The aroma of synth burgers and stale coffee at the Bite and Brew now mingled with the fresh scent of newfound freedom.